Okay, so we're back to while loops. Now, again, I want to emphasize that a while loop is what's called a pretest loop. That while statement right here, when it says while number less than or equal to 5, this is like an if statement. If that statement is true, it will continue on. If that statement is false, it will not do anything inside that loop. So this while loop with the pretest has a potential of never ever executing. So also, remember the braces. If you have more than one line, you have to include the braces. The braces basically say this is basically a grouping of code within the loop. So let's take a look at the check temperatures. Starts on page 202. And if we take a look at this, it looks like we are importing the scanner. Again, we have our static void main. So here we have a double variable. It's basically a final, which basically is a constant, and we're setting it to 102.5. And then we have another variable, which is a double, and we call it temperature. Then I go ahead and create my keyboard, and then I basically say enter the substance Celsius temperature, and I go ahead and grab that and throw it into the temperature variable. And then I say while temperature is greater than max temp, I say the temperature is too high, turn the thermostat down and wait 5 minutes, then the Celsius temperature again, and then so you would enter that variable or a numeric value in again. And again, if it's greater than 102.5, it will, again, this is greater than, so it's not greater than or equal to. So if you type in 102.5, it will basically, that's false. So in this particular case, we do have a situation where we could never ever get inside this loop. And then we do have the temperature is acceptable, check it again in 15 minutes. So again, if we were to run this, says enter the Celsius temperature. I type in 105. I hit the enter key. It says temperature is way too high. Turn the thermostat down. Now I'm inside the loop. So I have to keep entering numbers until I type in a numeric value less than 102.5. So again, if I typed in 103, it says it's turn the thermostat down again. If I typed in 101 and hit the enter key, it basically we dropped outside of the loop, and we basically check it again in 15 minutes. So if I run it again, and again this time if I type in 101, it comes up says temperature is acceptable, check again in 15 minutes. So in that particular case, the second run, it did not even get inside that do while loop. Okay, using the while loop for input validation. So this is kind of another good way to use loop. You ask, for example, we are looking for a certain range of values, or we're looking for a certain value type. I'm going to then ping our user to enter some type of data. So we're going to look up soccer teams. And we take a look at this. Again, static void main. There I have two constants. I have minimum players and max players set at 9 and 15. The rest are integers. I've got number of players, team size, teams left over, and then I do have a string for input. I'm using J option panes this time, and the input, I'm saying enter the number of players per team. And the team size then is we take that string value and parse it into an integer data type and throw it in the team size. And then I say while team size is less than the minimum value of players, or the team size is greater than the max players. So this is a great check. I'm making sure that I'm staying within the minimum and the maximum. So I'm saying if it's less than a minimum or it's greater than the maximum, we basically have an error. You need to re-enter a value to make sure that you're within that range. So that's where the while loop comes in. So again, since it's a pretest, we do have the potential of never ever going inside the loop. So if I happen to type in something less than 9 or greater than 15, this loop would pop up and say, hey, input J option pane, the number must be at least the minimum players or the maximum players, and then we go ahead and get another value from the user. So again, we're looping through making sure we get the value that we need. And since we're using constants, in this case minimum players and max players, what's nice about that is I can control those up here at the top of my my class, so that in the future, if we need to change that, we can actually just change it here and it will be reflected throughout the rest of the code. And then I say enter the number of players, available number of players. Again, it's a string. I parse it into an integer, and then I say while players is less than 0. Again, if it's less than 0, we need something greater than 0. So in this case, I throw up another J option pane. I'm saying, hey, please enter something greater than 0. Again, so here we have a 0. I would use a constant there. It's really kind of not good coding skills to hard code numbers. We always want to use variables. So these two zeros, I would actually probably have those up above as a constant, so that if we ever need to change that, we change it in one spot. And then I say teams, number of teams is the players divided by team size, leftovers the players, the modification or mod of the team size, and then I basically say J option pane, there will be, boom, that many teams left over. Okay, so pretty simplistic. I've got my minimum and maximum. I make sure that they enter something within there. If they don't, I loop through and basically keep popping up that screen until they enter a value that is valid. So again, if we were to run this, it comes up and I'll say 8 players on the team. It says the number must be at least 9 and no more than 15. Please enter the number of players. So I'll type in 12, and now enter the available number of players. So I'm going to say 0. There will be 0 teams with 0 players left over. Click that. Okay, so 0 was okay. If I typed in a negative number, then yes, we would have an invalid. Basically fall inside that loop, or fall inside the loop, and make sure we typed in a value greater than 0. So now the next thing we'll cover is the do while loop. Now what we've done pretty much so far, I know I've said do while, but it's basically a while loop. And while means you're going to perform this while this particular argument is true. Now we're going to do what's called a do while loop. Every now and then we need to do a loop where we need to execute it at least once. So here's how we do it. I'm going to open up the test average 1, and so here we've got some integers, we've got a double, we've got a char. So we've got score 1, score 2, score 3, then we've got the average, which is a double, we've got a char, which is one character, it's repeat, and we got our string input. So we basically have them, it's going to calculate the average of 3 test scores. Again, we're using the scanner keyboard. So here I get score 1, I get score 2, I get score 3, and then basically I do a next line, and then I say average is equal to score 1 plus score 2 plus score 3 divided by 3, and I go ahead and then print out the average. Would you like the average to another set of test scores? Yes or no? And if they type in a yes, then we basically do a loop. Now I want you to look here. Notice we've got the word do. That's all it means. It means do this. Okay. Now You notice we've got a beginning brace. If we come down here, here's our matching brace, and now we see the while. The do says you're going to execute this at least once. At the end of the loop, if we need to do it again, the check is there. It's what's called a post test. So a while loop is a pre-test, a do while is a post test. So just think of a do while as it's going to execute at least once. Then it does the check of the loop at the end. So in this while loop, we have a potential of never executing. Do while, it's always going to execute at least once. So we have do and then while. Okay, let's go ahead and we'll end that section there, and the next section we'll pick up with the for loop.